Hello, and the Baba Betzalel is back. There's two people of color walking down the road in front of a shul, which is a place of worship of a people of Jew. The people of color look in and they say, those Jewish people are so confused. I mean, look what they're doing. It happened to be the Hoshanna Rabba festival, where he said, look at those Jews on their festival. What are they so confused? Look at they're walking around and around in a circle. Got a lemon in one hand and a palm branch in the other, saying, I know, I don't know, how shall I know? I know, I don't know, how shall I know? Well, in order to understand the joke, you need to know that on Hoshanna Rabba we take the four species and we do indeed go around in circles and dance and pray and sing Anna, Anna, Adonai, Hoshiana, which in Eubonic usage sounds a lot like I know, I don't know, how shall I know. The joke has been explained for you sorry types who can't get a good Jewish joke. Okay, now today is the day of Hoshanna Rabba. No, next Friday is Hoshanna Rabba. So that's the day where we take the willow branch, we tie it up, and we beat it on the ground in the ancient rain dance of the Jewish people. We're praying for the whole world. We're praying for parnasa, for sustenance, for success, and for livelihood for the whole world. It's not about us, and that's what the willow branch is all about. So the Tifferet Yosef, in teaching about we start off with blowing the shofar, the ram's horn, on the first day of the month, of the year, on the new Rosh Hashanah. That's a simple voice coming from the heart. The Zohar, the book of Jewish mysticism, teaches that there is no voice without speech. Ein kol bli dibur. What does that mean? That means the voice comes from the heart. It's a simple voice, like the sound of the ram's horn crying out. It doesn't have speech. It's not executed to words. It's just the pure inner cry. That's going up to heaven and reminding heaven that we are still here. And it's connecting. It's not from us. It's something God gave us. God gives us voice. And then we have to do actions with our mouth. That's our free choice. The voice is determined. It's from God. It's not a part of us. The speech are our own actions in this world. It seems that people go through life saying there are many actions that seem devoid of meaning. Our cell phones and our internets and our mundane routines and our idle chatter and our silly jokes and all of these silly parts of modern life. And people and everybody, even very, very holy and good people have a large portion of their day devoted to nonsense. So then a person sits back and reflects upon his life and thinks, there's so many things devoid of meaning that I can't seem to escape. That's why in the last service, the first service of the year, was that inner voice. The last service of the year is taking willow branches, 5 of them, we tie them together, we wave them, and we beat them on the ground, trying to wake up the earth. The willow branch, it doesn't have a smell, it doesn't have a taste, it's devoid of it's these actions, these mundane, empty actions. And that's in order to show that God is Hashem. Hashem is telling us that there is nothing that's devoid of God's light. God's light is always connected. Everybody is always connected. So the inner voice is that point that's always connected. And then we go further and further away until it's the lowest point where we're like a willow branch, no smell, no taste. We beat it on the ground and we say, we're always connected. So it is known to those who know, and not to those who don't, that the 7 days of the Feast of Tabernacles, Sukkot, corresponds. There's a special guest on each of the 7 days. First day, Abraham. Second day, Yitzchak. Third day, Jacob. Fourth day is Moshe. Fifth day is Aharon. Sixth day is Joseph, the righteous Joseph. And the 7th day is King David. So Hoshanna Rabba, when we're beating that willow bundle on the ground to wake up the earth, That's King David. King David didn't do anything of his own. King David, according to Tifferet Yosef, explains to us that he's called living and enduring. Chai v'kayam. The one who knows that Hashem is living and enduring, even in the places that seem the farthest away. That God is always right there, even if we don't see Him. That's the one who is called living and enduring, and that was King David. King David he knew that God was causing a flux from the infinite to all of his actions at each and every moment. This is as we see that after every service of God that King David did, he didn't take credit. He gave God the credit for everything. He was just a vehicle, an instrument for God's light and God's actions. So there's a famous story in the end of the 2nd Samuel when enumerated the 30 greatest warriors of King David, and it says 3 of them that King David was sitting in his place, in his palace, and he was saying somewhere in the Beit Shemesh area. The Beit Shemesh is about half an hour outside of Jerusalem on the plains where David killed Goliath. He was there at one point saying, and late in his life saying, or maybe earlier, remembering the end of the book of Samuel, he flashes back to an earlier point where he says, "Would that I could drink from the well in Bethlehem." Bethlehem was then under the jurisdiction of the Philistines, the Palestinians. So then the 3 greatest warriors of King David, the Israelite, ran up, and they ran into the Philistine strongholds in Bethlehem, and they drew from the well. Maybe it was Solomon's pools. And then they brought it back, and he wouldn't drink from it. He just said, "If I only could do it," and they took it of their own initiative to risk their very lives. He said, I would drink it. I know I see you risked your life, but I'm not going to drink the water, said King David, because I've received from the house of my forefathers that anybody who risks their very life over the words of Torah, you don't say the law in their name. In other words, if we can discuss the meaning of this, Tifferet Yosef makes a leap and explains the meaning. He didn't take anything from himself. It's not in his name. It's not in their name, and their names are not clearly mentioned in the verses, as you can see. They're jumbled a little bit. So, King David he knew that it was all coming from God. That's why King David said in the Psalms, in Psalm 130, with God is the loving kindness, and He has a great power to redeem. And the actions of King David are called the loving, faithful actions of David. Why are they loving and faithful? Because it's not from himself. The lovingness and faithfulness is that all of the chesed and all of the loving kindness is coming from Hashem. He knows that God's is the chesed, and when you know that all chesed, all kindness and love is really just coming from God, when you know that all kindness and love is really just coming from God, then at that point, then God shines into you the illumination that He has a great power to redeem, that there's nothing irredeemable. In other words, we give up the reins, and we say it's not us, it's coming from beyond us. So at that moment, God says, if you know this, nothing that you do will be irredeemable. Even the lowest and driest willow branch will be irredeemable. That's King David, and that nothing is going to be lost. And if we realize, we put ourselves aside and realize it's all coming from God, all coming from the Rabbanu Shalom, Master of Heaven and Earth. And that's the meaning behind beating the willow branches on Hoshanna Rabba, on the last day of the High Holidays. Shalom uvracha.